Good evening and welcome to members, officers, the press and public joining this evening's Strategic Development Committee. The meeting is being streamed live on YouTube, so welcome to anybody viewing on YouTube. To minimise travel and maintain social distancing, most officers are joining this evening's meeting via Zoom. Can I start by checking, can everybody present hear me? That's great, thank you. And I can see some waved hands on the screen over to my left, or I can see a row of faces as well. That's helpful, thank you. My name's Councillor Rachel Tripp. I'm the chair of the Strategic Development Committee. Please, can everyone physically present continue to wear face masks until they're invited to speak? After you've finished speaking, you can recover your face. I will keep my mask on throughout, but you don't necessarily have to. For members in the room, when you're speaking, can you please speak clearly and loudly so the microphone can pick up what you say? For those joining us by Zoom, welcome. Please mute your microphone if you're not speaking. I'm now going to ask members of the committee and officers to introduce themselves. I suggest that we do this in the order in which people appear on the second page of the agenda. Anthony is not present today, so that means the next person is James.
Hi, Councillor James Beckles, Custom Council Ward.
Hi, Councillor Rohit Dasgupta, County Council.
Hi, Councillor Joshua Garfield, Stratford and Newtown.
Alan's also not present.
Hi, Councillor Jen Kitchen, Bowen Ward.
Good evening, Councillor Cardingley Parkway, Gloucester South.
Good evening, Councillor Henderson Verdi, Bowling Ward.
Hello, Jane Custance. I'm the Director of Planning and Development.
Hello, I'm James Bolt, Senior Development Manager.
Hello, my name is Nurinder Ubi. I'm a Principal Transport Planner.
Hello, my name is Amanda Campbell, Head of Planning Law.
Hello, I'm Rajvinder Kaur, Planning Officer, Newham Council.
Claire Newitt, Principal Planner, Newham Council.
And finally, Adam Silverwood sends his apologies. I'll be presenting item 9. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to remind members that when a vote is taken, it will be by way of raising our physical hands, and that's so that that can be captured on screen. So the first item on our agenda is the election of the Vice Chair. Can I please invite nominations for the position of Vice Chair?
Chair, I'd like to self-nominate.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll do the second, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? In that case, I think we do take a vote. So thank you very much, Councillor Beckles. Delighted to have you as my Vice Chair. Item number 2 on the agenda is apologies. I have received apologies for absence from Councillor Hanif Abdul-Mahit and from Councillor Alan Griffiths. I don't think there can be any further apologies since everybody else is here. Thank you very much. Item 3 is the minutes from our previous meeting held on the 25th of May 2021, which can be found on pages 13 to 24 of our agenda. May I ask if there are any inaccuracies or comments which any members wanted to raise, please? In which case, can I ask that we note these minutes as a true record of that meeting? Thank you. I'd also just like to record for the minutes that in the changeover between chairs, we still have the minutes from our February meeting, which we're going to have some minor amendments, and they will be brought back to our next meeting for us to approve. Item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest for the items we're considering today?
Chair, I've got one. Item 7, Custom House.
you. Councillor Parkway.
Chair, I would need to remove myself from item 9, which I am the chair of the corporate parenting board, and I would also like to be speaker on this item.
Thank you. So having done that, we now move to item 5, determining planning applications. Members are asked to note the advice from the Head of Legal Services on determining planning applications. Is that noted?
Noted.
Thank you. Announcements from the Chair. The committee has received the following requests to address the committee. Would the speakers please identify themselves when I call out their name? So under item 7, Newham Dockside, we have Anna Russell-Smith.
Afternoon, Chair. It won't actually be myself. It will be the London Ambulance Service, which I think they are on. I don't know if they can unmute themselves.
Thank you. I've got some other names here, so I expect that will be the LAS. So I've got Jason Challen.
Good afternoon, Jason Challen from the London Ambulance Service.
Thank you. Also, Shaibul Rahman.
Hi, Shaibul Rahman, London Ambulance Service.
Thank you. And Eric Clee.
Hi, Eric Clee, London Ambulance Service.
Thank you very much. And the final name, item 7, is Hardy Mir.
Afternoon, colleagues. Kadir Mir.
Thank you. Item 8, Newham Collegiate Sixth Form Centre. We have Amir Murphy.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Thank you. Apologies, I may have mispronounced your first name.
That's okay, it's Emer.
Emer, thank you. And item 9, Internal Audit 455 Barking Road. Is Carlos Galaz on the call?
Good afternoon, Chair. Carlos Galaz.
Thank you. And Mick Potter?
Yes, Chair, I'm here.
Thank you. Sophia Khan?
Yes, Chair, I'm here.
And Sue Richards?
Yes, Chair, I'm here.
And I believe that we also have our colleague Carleen Lee Parkway, who stated that she would like to speak. And I think also Councillor Sarah Ruiz.
I'm not actually sure I should be able to stay that long, Chair. I have another meeting to go to, but Carleen knows exactly what to say. So thank you.
Understood, thank you. So, members, can we agree the remainder of the order of business as outlined on the agenda?
Agreed.
Thank you. And would members also please note the officer update report, which has been circulated? So I'd like you to please note that the full consideration and planning assessment of matters is covered comprehensively in the committee report. I trust members have had full regard to the committee report, and the officer presentations today will be a summary of the key issues only. Can I please call upon the presenting officer, Claire Newitt, to present the first application?
Thank you, Chair. Let me just bring up the presentation and share the screen. Can everybody see that?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, members. Item 7 relates to the ground floor east wing at Newham Dockside. Newham Dockside is the council's main office building and is located adjacent to the ABP office development to the north of London City Airport and to the south of the DLR. This outlines the site here. The application seeks planning permission for the change of use of part of the ground floor east wing from offices, which is the new use class E, for use as an education training centre for the London Ambulance Service, which is use class F1. The key planning considerations are the principle of development and transport and travel. Turning first to the loss of the offices and a designated employment hub, these offices have been unsuccessfully marketed for a sustained period of time and have been deemed surplus to requirements by LBN Asset Management. A Cabinet report dated the 12th of January 2021 details that LBN Asset Management have already negotiated a 10-year lease of this space to the London Ambulance Service. The proposed arrangements would bring this space back into beneficial use and generate income for the council. Further to this, the training facility is directly related to the operational requirements of the London Ambulance Service and would generate additional employment. The loss of the offices to provide an education training facility for the London Ambulance Service is considered to be acceptable in this regard. Secondly, in relation to the proposed community use, the proposed training facility would meet a strategic need to provide training for new and existing London Ambulance Service staff and thus meet the increased pressures of emergency care in London. The training provided at the application site would ensure London Ambulance Service staff are more highly qualified and equipped to face the challenges of medical emergencies, which would in turn benefit the residents of Newham on a local level, but also residents of London as a whole. The applicant has provided information on a number of different sites across London that were considered and subsequently discounted before arriving at a short list of two, a site in Brentford and the application site. The application site was deemed by the London Ambulance Service as the most appropriate, given its accessibility to public transport, capacity for ambulance parking, size and cost. The site is not within a town centre, however, its proximity to the DLR station, as well as local bus routes, means it can be easily accessed by public transport. The facilities would not be opened up to other groups in the community outside of the operational hours, due to the confidential information that will be held within the training centre, as well as the specialist equipment in the centre, security concerns and disruption to London Ambulance Service training. Whilst this is regrettable, it is considered to be sufficiently justified by the applicant and would be appropriate given the site's broader positioning within the council offices. The principle of development is therefore supported. The majority of staff and trainees would travel to and from the site using public transport. An interim travel plan has been provided. A condition is recommended to require an update as well as a travel plan monitoring fee secured as part of the Section 106 agreement. Existing spaces within the basement and ground floor car parks would be reallocated for the London Ambulance Service. A condition has been recommended to ensure that at least half of the allocated car parking spaces are prioritised for blue badge holders. Existing cycle parking would be utilised with additional showers and lockers installed. The proposals in terms of transport and travel are supported. Neighbouring occupiers have been consulted. No objections or other comments have been received. The Strategic Development Committee is asked to note the committee update and to resolve to agree the reasons for approval as set out in the report and delegate authority to the Director of Planning and Development to grant planning permission subject to the completion of a legal agreement under Section 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act, based on the heads of terms identified at Appendix 2 of the report and the conditions listed in Appendix 1 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I ask members if they have any questions, can I check whether the applicant team would like to make a presentation or whether you're happy to just answer queries that members may have?
Thank you, Chair. I think we're happy to just answer queries.
No problem. Committee members, can I ask if you have any questions? Can you please raise your hand?
Chair, just a quick question. When it says it's advertised for other uses, did anybody else come forward or not? Or where was this advertised?
Do we have any information on where the vacancy was advertised?
So I'll answer that one if that's okay. Hello, Anna Smith from Montague Evans. The proposal wasn't put forward for other users to use the site, as I went into great detail as part of the application, which is set out in the committee report. the LAS, as set out in the presentation just then, the LAS have a sensitive nature of what they're doing, and they have specialist equipment in there, but also specialist information in relation to the operation of the service, and therefore it's deemed that it wouldn't be acceptable to be able to allow to lease the space to other parties that fall outside of the London Ambulance Service.
I think if I understood, the question was not so much about leasing the space to other parties as well, but was more about exploring who else might be interested in it first. Could officers, do officers have any information on that?
Sorry, do you mean in terms of looking for occupants of the offices before the use was changed?
I think is that your question, Linda?
The use was changed, and also were other organisations given the opportunity to come and bid for the space?
So other community uses, do you mean?
I think I can probably answer that, Chair. So ahead of the application being submitted, we did liaise with colleagues in property. So they have been marketing the space, and this was the kind of best offer and best fit for Newham Dockside, but these aren't really material planning considerations. So what we're being asked to do is determine whether the proposed change of use for part of Dockside to the London Ambulance Service is acceptable.
That's very helpful, thank you. And perhaps as members, if we have other questions about how our colleagues in property are managing our assets, that's something we could pick up from outside the meeting. Were there any further questions or queries any colleagues had? Joshua?
Thank you, Chair. Just a very quick logistical question, and I may be mistaken because I'm not a motorist, but as I currently understand it, one has to, if one parks at Newham Dockside, has to drive through that entrance and then exits through the opposite end, which would be the west end. So you enter the east, exit the west. If the ambulance service is occupying the west, does that entrance for staff here change, or is there no change to that? Or have I got it completely wrong?
Through the chair, shall I take that, Claire? Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
If I read that right, Councillor Joshua, it's about the commercial vehicles rather than the cars, and they would be on the eastern end, and they would have the accessibility from that side to access and leave. So they wouldn't be going through the car park.
Okay, so pardon me, Chair, for
No, go ahead.
so the entrance for motorists would still be in the west, but it wouldn't be part of the ambulance side, the east.
That's correct. So yeah, okay.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for entertaining that.
Thank you. Were there any further questions from colleagues?
Just one question. Thanks, Councillor James Pebbles, Custom House. In terms of the number of ambulance staff will be on site, training and maximum capacity, how many is envisaged?
I believe it's 160, if the applicant wants to just confirm that.
That's a maximum number, but in reality, probably wouldn't achieve that number. That's if every classroom is fully occupied and all of the staff that are allocated to the site in attendance. In reality, we'll be working towards remote working for some of the staff. They don't all come to the site every single day. It's based on 160, is based on 60 CES or training staff and 100 students. So we may at a time have 100 students, but it's very unlikely we even have the 60 staff members, which is broadly the same number, I believe, of desk spaces that were in the space before prior to use.
The sound quality that we're getting from you is not great, but I think I understood from that that number is likely to be a maximum number, and that you would expect that some people would be working remotely, and generally it wouldn't be that number of people. Is that a correct précis?
Yes.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, then could I please ask Claire to put the recommendation back on our screen? And may I please take a vote from the committee All those in favour of the officer recommendation to note the committee update and to agree the reasons for approval, can you please show your hands? Thank you very much. That is unanimous. That item is done with. Thank you to those who attended to present it to us. The next item on our agenda is item 8. There are 2 formal applications under this, both of which concern Newham Collegiate Sixth Form Centre, 326 Barking Road in East Ham. Can I please ask the applicants if they would like to present to us, please?
Hi, Chair. I won't be presenting. I'm just here to answer questions if needed.
In which case, could we please have the officer report?
Thank you. I'll just share my screen now. Can I confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
This is item 8, Newham Collegiate Sixth Form College at 326 Barking Road. This is for works to the library building. The site is situated in the central eastern portion of the borough within East Ham Central, fronting High Street South to the west. Apologies, is my slide changing or no?
Not yet, no.
Okay, I'll just stop the share for 1 second. And now is it visible? Changing?
Not changing.
Again, we
Still
can
not changing.
slide. Great.
Okay. Apologies.
Don't worry at all. Sometimes there's a small lag. It might be worth trying to share again, changing the slide and then seeing if it does change with a delay.
Now is it? That's better. There we go.
Okay,
So the site, thank you. The site is situated in the central eastern portion of the borough within East Ham Central, fronting High Street South to the west. The applications seek the erection of a new lift at the former East Ham Library, together with associated internal and external alterations. The applications were advertised as listed building and affecting the setting of listed buildings and falling within the East Ham conservation area. These images are the view from High Street South towards the main entrance and side axis, and the partial view from Nelson Street of the building you can see between the 2 buildings. This image is an aerial photo showing the library building in red, which is a grade 2 listed building. The site is within the conservation area outlined in green and is near the grade 2 star listed town hall and grade 2 wall which wraps the site. The grade 2 technical college building is occupied by Newham Collegiate Sixth Form College and the former East Ham Fire Station building. This image shows the bird's eye view of the library building outlined in yellow. The area where the lift is sited is highlighted in green on the northern elevation. This plan shows the proposed site layout, which includes the external works housing the new lift, and the remaining works are all internal. This plan denotes the areas that are to be refurbished in colour on the ground floor. This consists of the heavy refurbishment and light refurbishment of the servery area and the existing toilets. This plan shows the proposed elevations, showing the lift proposal and where the 2 existing windows are to be removed on the same elevation. The key planning considerations are design and heritage. The proposed adaptations to the library building are minimal and largely internal and would provide level access and better provision of WCs. The lift is in a discrete location where it would not disrupt the appearance, character, or plan form of the building's principal areas of interest. The structure could also be removed in future. The design, scale, and siting is acceptable and is appropriate in relation to the site and for the use, and takes into account the existing layout of the building. LBN strategic design are also supportive of the proposals. The design is therefore supported. The significance of the Grade 2 listed building is in the aesthetic value due to its architectural interest and communal value in its civic use by the community prior to its use by the college. The building also forms part of the group of civic listed buildings within the East Ham Conservation Area. The site is also located within the East Ham Conservation Area, as mentioned before, and with a number of nearby listed buildings within the East Ham Town Hall Civic Complex. The impacts to the conservation areas and the listed buildings have been assessed in line with national and local policy within the officer report. Officers consider that the proposal, due to the siting scale and design, would not have a negative impact on and the setting of the library building and the nearby listed buildings and the East Ham Conservation Area. The proposal is considered to be sympathetic and the proposed retention of key features of the building is welcomed. The proposals are therefore supported. Recommendations. So in respect to the full planning permission, members of the Strategic Development Committee are asked to note the committee update report and resolve to agree the reasons for approval as set out within this report and grant planning permission based on the conditions listed in Appendix 1 of the committee report. The recommendation for the listed building consent, the Strategic Development Committee is asked to note the update report again and resolve to agree the reasons for approval as set out in this report and grant listed building consent based on the conditions listed in Appendix 2 of the committee report. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Can I ask colleagues if they have any questions based on the application you've just heard from? In which case, could we please go back and put the recommendations to the committee back on our screen? So this is the first of the votes we'll be taking on this item, and this is the agreement of planning permission. Can I ask those in favour, please show their hands. Thank you very much. Again, that is unanimous. If we could have the second recommendation on our shared screen, and this is the listed building consent. So again, can those in favour please show their hands? Thank you very much. That brings us on to the last and final item, item 9, which is on the agenda as internal audit 455 Barking Road, but which is probably better understood, I believe, as a hub for care leavers in Newham. Can I please ask if the applicants would like to present this item?
Sorry, Chair, is that me as the applicant?
Yeah, well, there are 5 minutes allocated in total, and I've got the 4 names down, as well as I believe a couple of colleagues. So you may divide that up between yourselves, however you see fit.
Okay, sure. I think the papers are on page 113 in the pack. So if you bear with me 1 second while I pull it up. So the purpose of this application is for our Care Leavers Hub, which will be named the Cove. We've secured the capital funding last year to do work on this project. There's been a lot of work that's gone into it with our care leavers getting their ideas and also designing this space for them, so they'll have a place to be able to get together and also for services to be run.
Excuse me, sorry, Chair.
I'm so very sorry. I think you probably couldn't hear me. Can I please interrupt you for just one moment? I've had a request from a committee member if we could have a very short comfort break. I don't want to undermine this important application in any way, so I'm going to suggest it's now, have a look. It's now 5:30. Can I suggest that we come back here at 5:35? I'm really very sorry to stop you. I will allow you the full 5 minutes to restart once we reconvene. I just want to make sure the full committee is here, that the decision that we make isn't undermined by someone not being in the room for part of it, and that everyone's able to give it their full attention.
My apologies as well. I'm so sorry.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right. So a 5-minute comfort break. Thank you.
Yeah. It's just the work, a couple of designated. Literally like, which you advice, if you have to meet some doors. You're a big fan. Yeah, exactly. All of our saliva.
Yes.
Useless.
All right.
Yes.
Right. In which case, I think that it's now 5:35. Thank you, everybody, very much for your patience. Can I check that everything is still in order? It seems that we're still streaming on YouTube, so I think that we can resume.
Oh, hi. So, as I was saying, so the proposal is in relation to 455 Barking Road in East Ham. So the purpose of the proposal is to change the use of an existing office building on the ground floor of a residential block to be the care leavers hub, which will be known as the Cove. So the reason for that, the paper that I referenced outlines the position really in terms of agreements that have been made and the suitability of the building and how we arrived at selecting that. And really what we're requesting the committee to make a decision is in relation to agree the reasons for the approval as set out in the report and grant planning permission based on the conditions listed in Appendix 1 and the summary in the report. I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has specific questions.
Thank you. Did other members of the applicant team wish to address the committee? Councillor Lee Parkway.
Thank you, everyone. I guess what I wanted to add to this very important application this evening is that this application has been in the making for many years, and this is a sought after proposal for the young people of Newham, those that we have corporate responsibility to. And I just obviously want to support this application because we, as a local authority, but more so as residents, have a responsibility to the young people that come into our care. This actual building, which is named the Cove by the young people, is a building that will be more than just a building. It will be a building that will give young people the opportunity to access services, much needed services in the community, rather than them coming to us, we'll be going to them. I do note in the application pack that there was not an objection, but a concern in regards to antisocial behaviour and how the building will run. This is something that myself and Sarah will make sure that we are very much on top of in relation to the operation of the building. And Emma Cockrell is also here as the Assistant Director currently, who may be able to speak on that. But we are really excited for this to come into application today, and hopefully this will be approved if possible, and we will be able to start what it is that we have been talking about for many years. Thank you. And also, just one more, actually, Sarah, are you going to come in?
Oh, I just really want to reiterate what Carleen has said. We have been talking about the Care Leavers Hub since January 2019, and I know this sounds like a long time, but we have really struggled to find an appropriate building. But the young people have been fully participating in this application. They chose the building. They have done the plans for the inside. They know exactly what they want. And actually this will be for some like a home from home. So it isn't just about services, it's also enabling our young people to meet with other young people in a really safe environment. So yes, I would really beg you to approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I ask colleagues in the meeting, please, whether anybody has any questions to address?
Thank you, Chair. Just a very quick one, and I'm very sorry if it's been covered. So this was about the fact that a lot of the service users are very vulnerable who will be using these services, and I don't know whether this is a material concern for us, but what about the security arrangement and access? How is that going to happen?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? You were breaking up and it was hard to hear what you asked at the end.
So my question is that a large number of the service users will be vulnerable using the space, and I don't know whether this is a material concern for the application today. What kind of security arrangements are there in terms of who can access and who cannot, in terms of the design of the space? Thank you.
So in terms of security, the actual site will also have members of the leaving care staff, so it will be staffed by their PAs and also the service area. So the space will be a mixture of our staff and also young people. So they won't be left alone in that space. So there will always be security. There will always be representatives from the service with them to support them.
Thank you. Apologies, members, if I could move us to the officers' report and then come back to any further questions, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to share my screen now. Thank you, Chair. Item 9 is 455 Barking Road. Here you can see the application site. It lies to the north of Barking Road and on the junction with Latimer Avenue. Here are some pictures taken from the viewpoint of Latimer Avenue and Barking Road. The site is former office use on the ground floor with residential homes above. This is an application for full planning permission for the change of use from an existing office building on the ground floor of a residential block to a care leavers hub. And to also note that this site falls within the conservation area in East Ham and also affects the setting of listed buildings. And so the key consideration is the principle of development and how this application addresses most notably policy INF 8. And so take you through what policy INF 8 is in the local plan. There are some key in principle matters that need to be addressed in relation to change of use to community facilities in order to garner support from policy INF 8. And the first is that the proposal must deal with the whole site and avoid piecemeal development. Secondly is around the location, and there's a presumption of a town and local centre first, or if there is sufficient evidence, a community facility opportunity area will also be considered as meeting the exceptions test in policy INF 8. Thirdly, there must be identified local need demonstrating benefits to new residents. Fourthly, the application proposal must be outwardly looking, must be active, well designed, and interacts with the street scene. And fifth, it must be inclusive, accessible, welcome, and open and available for members of the community. And so firstly, the first matter is to identify the location of this site. As you will see in the committee report, the location of this site sits just outside of the East Ham town centre boundary, and albeit it is not strictly within the East Ham town centre boundary, it is extremely close to it and in a well-connected part of the borough, and is in a area of a cluster of other Newham buildings that serve that area well. This application also demonstrates an evidence of strategic need. There was an Ofsted report that identified most children in care and care leavers are not supported well enough. Services for care leavers have deteriorated, and the needs of too many young people are not met or even known because there is a lack of contact from the care leavers service. The service is not child-centred in the way that it is set up, for example, being based in a building which does not allow young people access. And this application proposal directly responds to these Ofsted recommendations. And next, when addressing the requirements for under INF 8 for 67% of its users to be Newham residents, well, I believe there is actually a statutory requirement through the Homeless Prevention Act and also the Children's Act that says that those care leavers must have a connection with the borough. So that is tied into a statutory requirement as well. But the site will not be accessed by members of the general public, given the vulnerable nature of some of those occupiers there. And finally, as you can see, once there is some signage on the building and the shutters are open and it's available for use. The building does directly address the street scene and will be outwardly looking. And so overall, on balance, there is considerable weight that's been given to the need for this type of accommodation. I believe it's the only one that is going to be servicing the borough, and albeit it's located outside of a town centre, it is well served by public transport, is very accessible, and is on the fringe of a cluster of other Newham and other civic uses in that location. So overall, the principle of development is supported. In terms of public consultation, 2 responses were received. One particular response wasn't an objection, but more a general comment, which is set out in the officer report. And finally, the Strategic Development Committee is asked to resolve to agree the reasons for approval as set out in the report and grant planning permissions based on the conditions listed in Appendix 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now to return to any further questions from my colleagues. Councillor Saint-Berdy, I think you put your hand up earlier.
No, it's okay. I'll come back to more questions.
No problem. Councillor Garfield.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, I had a question about cycle provision, just because I note that if I get the number correct, I'm on page 133, and the report makes reference to the publicly accessible cycle spaces. And I wondered, does this therefore mean that there is nowhere secure for proposed future residents of this building to securely park the bicycles, or is there?
James, do you want to, through the chair, did you want to come across?
Sorry, I don't know the specific answer to that, Narinda. So yeah, if you are able to cover that off, that'd be excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we, in terms of the information that we've got, we wouldn't be looking for anything within the site, but there is ample cycle parking provision around the site, which should be sufficient to meet their requirements. So that's how I think the officers take that view. Okay.
Thank you. And if the committee will indulge me, I'd also made a note about cycle parking provision. I didn't feel that it was sufficient of a concern to jeopardise the decision about this important application, but I did just want to pass on to colleagues who deal with care leavers that in terms of equipping young people to be economically and socially independent, encouraging them to cycle could be a really important part of our responsibility to those young people. And so I wondered if I could just ask you to take that away and think about ways in which we could support care leavers as an organisation, perhaps not as a planning authority, to be able to cycle, to keep up with their friends, to maintain contacts, to seek employment and all the other things those young people will need to do. Councillor Saint-Berdy.
Yeah, thank you. A couple of questions, Shirley. The first is, reading the report on page 133, we are looking to see potentially up to 40 persons attending the site during the average day. So there will be a maximum, I would say, the first line on the program, up to 15 can access it at a time. So are we saying there will be up to 40 persons at one time, or just during the day? That's my first question. And leading on to what Joshua was talking about, the cycle parking, considering that the pictures do show a van parked on page 138 outside the premises, could this be considered as a location?
Are you asking for in regards to cycle parking?
No, I'm stuck, yes. If there's a van that could be parked there, there is a van parking.
Yeah, for those who don't have access to the papers, we have some images in front of us which show the building currently, one of which appears to show a van parked, possibly illegally, on the pavement, which has led to a suggestion that perhaps this could be
I'll leave it for the officers to have a look at.
A useful site.
I do welcome the proposal.
Thank you. Perhaps again, I could ask if the applicants could just take that away and have a look at it, rather than trying to determine now whether or not that might be suitable. Were there any further questions from the committee? Councillor Beckles.
Thanks, Chair. There's just one question and a slight comment on page 130, and the comment is, I guess reading that section 62, you can see the number of challenges that care leavers face when they're in the community, when they leave our care or before. So it'd be good to understand what type of social services will be available to these young people to help them combat homelessness, drug and alcohol dependency, offending and mental health issues.
We have an item in the chat saying that, sorry, the sound isn't clear.
Right.
Could I ask you to repeat your question?
Sure thing.
Perhaps to raise your voice a bit,
Raise my
as if
yeah.
you're addressing the whole room.
And I'll try to enunciate as well. So it's page 130, section 62. My comment was about the challenges that care leavers face. So they are more likely to be needs, have poor educational outcomes, unemployment, homelessness, drug and alcohol dependency, offending and mental health issues. The report does talk a lot about new and social services, but it would be good to understand what services will be available to them on site as they are in the community, and just to elaborate a bit more on that and the importance of this scheme.
Thank you. Would anyone from the applicant team like to come back and answer that question about the support that can be offered to care leavers in this building?
Hi, thanks. So there'll be a range of support. So we want to get, for example, benefits, housing, all the advice that we would give young people and be able to base them out of that building and have them come there. So to be more accessible to care leavers. So we'll be working with health in terms of in that area. So there'll be a range of services that we want to base from there. They won't necessarily be always there, but we'll be setting up a system about, for example, on a Tuesday, it will be a certain drop day where we know that someone from the benefits team will be there to be able to help with any sort of queries of that nature. So we're looking at putting those services in there. Because the way the building's designed, it's accessible for that, and in the planning there are rooms and spaces for that to take place. And also because we've been planning through this and through COVID, the planning, it's quite of an open space, so we'll be able to move walls around and things like that to even open up bigger spaces if need be. I hope that answers your question.
It does, thank you.
Thank you. And did Emma Cockerell want to come in response to that question as well, please?
It was just to, thank you, Chair. It was just to echo what Carlos was saying, really, to provide effectively kind of a space where we can more effectively coordinate that support and deliver that support from, given, you know, the different types of needs that have been identified for this group of young people. It's worth noting that these young people will be aged, you know, are aged 18 to 25. And as has been kind of mentioned by the councillors supporting, there are particular issues and that we really do need to kind of coordinate more effectively and deliver support more effectively in a coordinated way, and that will allow this hub, this site will allow us to do that, and will be a kind of a destination point for our young people to be able to source that support.
Thank you. Councillor Parkway.
Thank you. I just want to add one more bit to that, just for a little bit of clarity, Councillor Beckles. The centre itself is not a doing to our young people, it's a doing with our young people. It's actually a place where it's services that our young people require. So mental health and well-being, it's about providing exercise in a safe environment for our young people. We have on the corporate parenting board different partners that sit around that table, and so it will be about making sure that the work that we're doing is with our young people rather than to our young people. So as much as it will be providing much needed services in a time where things are very difficult for our young people due to COVID, it is also, just going back slightly to the presentation that James put up, there is a need here, and there was a recommendation made by Ofsted at our previous inspection that said that we needed to make sure as a local authority we address the needs of our young people. correctly. So this is what this really is all about. But I just wanted to just elaborate that point about it's with our young people, not to them.
That's very helpful, thank you. Were there any more questions from members? Councillor Hitchin.
I just have one question. It's not really of material consideration, but again, because you're in the room, it'd be good to have an answer. I noticed from the site information and from knowing the area quite well, actually this would be within 400 metres of a betting shop, and considering what you'd be undertaking, the young people that might come through the door, I wonder if you could reassure us what safeguarding measures you'll be putting in place to make sure that people that might be suffering from gambling addiction have the proper care and attention that they need.
Thank you. I could see some people who are joining us on Zoom, maybe their body language indicated that it was hard to hear, but Councillor Kitchen was basically expressing some concern about the proximity to a betting shop and wondering how that proximity might be managed to protect the young people.
Again, like I said before, we will have staff there. We have, although there is that betting shop there, we are working with our young people and we are looking at all of their different needs, and should that be an issue for young people, it's definitely something that we will be helping them to address that, because again, the hub will be worked by people that they have a relationship with, that they've been working with over a period of time. So it's not like they're going to a hub full of strangers. They're going to a hub with their personal advisors, which they've been working with for some time. Is that?
Thank you. That information is very helpful. Further questions? I don't think that we have any, in which case, could I please ask that the officer recommendation is put back on screen? So the recommendation is for approval. Can I please ask all those members present to indicate if they're voting in favour? Thank you. And since Colleen has declared an interest, that is again unanimous. Thank you very much to everyone who has attended. That does bring us to the end of the business of this meeting. I know just under an hour, perhaps the shortest planning meeting that any of us have ever attended. Item 10, the final item, is the date of the next meeting, which is the 13th of July. And thank you all very much for attending, whether in person or virtually. Thank you for your patience as we grappled with this new format of blended meetings.